perspective, the person was making around 1.75 percent, 1.72 lakhs. The compounding return was roughly 13%, which is pretty decent by any standards, I would say. But if we kind of now convert it back to dollars at the conversion rate with the bank will charge, this particular part will go to 7.3% and as a compounding return. So this is what the rupee depreciation has eaten up. Now, I'm not even considering taxation over here. You can very well see that if you kind of end up in an inverse tax, इसमें से आराम से 10-15% might be eaten up by the capital gains easily. So hence, it's very important to be cognizant when we are suggesting any investing to a client that we should consider how INR depreciation could impact, and hence also asking one more important question, self-introspection. That does it make sense for us to suggest anything to our clients who's sending money to India, fresh money to India, to invest in something which could be yielding less than 8%. Now, let's see what Uma kind of brings up across on the table. That is the only thing to consider is to ask NRI to send money to India. They might have a pot of money already lying in India, which needs to be managed. So we'll hear more from her on that part. But the takeaway from this slide is that we need to be cognizant about what are the costs of NRI, and then what are we suggesting that particular person to invest in. And over here, the next part which kind of helps us understand is then what are the different asset classes from an NRI perspective which are available in India. The most favorite part for most of the NRIs is they will send money in truckloads and they would put that and park that in a fixed deposit instrument, assuming that, yes, it's tax-free NRI fixed deposits. When bankers also don't do themselves any favor, they will kind of just NRI fixed deposits are tax-free in India. So tax-free के नाम पे पैसा मंगवाते हैं, but it is tax-free in India, but not tax-free in the not always tax-free in the respective countries. Middle East में tax-free हो सकता है, but not all NRIs from Middle East. And then think about it in the previous slide where I explained about how INR depreciation could eat into your returns and taxation and FX cost, which we spoke about. Would it make sense for a person to send money to India to do fixed deposit? I think ignoring even inflation, this is a negative return proposition in many cases. The next one is gold as an asset. Many of the people would suggest investing in gold. Good, it's a reasonably good idea. We have gone through quite a few presentations in NFP's previous network FP's seminars about that gold is a good asset to invest, a good hedge, a good beat against inflation. But is India the right place to put that money? Gold is a universal asset class. It doesn't matter where you invest, and even more when you invest money in gold in India, it's already subject to a lot of taxes in India. So and even if we suggest someone to kind of invest in gold through digital routes like gold funds, ETFs, the expense ratios in India are quite high versus what is available in the respective countries if there is an option. The important part is if there is an option. Most of the NRIs I've come across, they have an option. We just need to kind of dig and assist them. So I find gold में भी लाकर इंडिया में पैसा आया, 6-7% कमाया, लेकिन from the previous slide where we experienced, roughly break even tends to be 7-8%. Does it make sense to put that money in India, या उसको उसी की country में डॉलर में invest करा दिया जाए? A food for thought. I'm not kind of pushing across point, but food for thought. That would that money be having a good objective to put in India for this asset class? The next one is, which is becoming a little bit interesting, is some advisors and investors, both sides, would send money to India and invest in an international fund in India. Now, I find it really odd. वो अपनी कंट्री से पैसा इंडिया में भेजेंगे और इंडिया से उसे डॉलर में कन्वर्ट कराएंगे, डॉलर में कन्वर्ट होकर फिर वो ओवरसीज में इन्वेस्ट होगा उन्हीं की कंट्री में इन मेनी केसेस. कई बार ठीक है, द रूट्स कुड बी फ्रॉम डिफरेंट. यूके से आया, इंडिया में आके यूएस में लग गया, या सिंगापुर से आया वहां से लग गया, मिडिल ईस्ट से घूम के आया, whatever it is. But investing in India through regular plans, we have seen that the expense ratios is 1%. Not that high, but still, when we try to compare it with the options available in the respective countries, it's like 5 to 10 times more expensive. So unless it is a niche product which is not available in their respective countries, it could be also one of the products which you could think maybe it's not a good idea to bring that money in. And so these are the kind of asset classes from our perspective and our hands and come into. If in India, mein kya invest kiya jaye? Yeah, we have the good old equities of India and the real estate. We'll talk about it in the next few slides. I thought to kind of from here consider a little bit more about a repatriation part. Now NRIs को पैसा वापस चाहिए, तो वो पैसा वापस करने के लिए what is the route an NRI should take in investing? And I thought to kind of bring it in a form of a chart of flow of money. And NRIs, let's assume this particular person is sitting in US because today's theme is US and it's in dollars. You could consider any other country. Now, when the person is sending money, the person has a choice to send either into NRO or NRE. There are two types of non-resident account. Also, they always have a choice, which is not the right thing, but they could be, and they may be, and they are sending it to the normal saving account, which was opened long time back when they used to be a resident of the country. Band nahi karate us account, and they keep on sending money over there. But let's see the flow of investing from here. NRE में पैसा जब आ गया, from there it will actually get different type of investment options are here available with a non-resident. Mutual funds, fixed deposit, stocks. Now we have got a few color codes. Green means whatever gets out of NRE will come back to NRE easily. Directly aa jayega. There's no intervention required. Red is a little bit tricky area because when from here money can go and get invested into real estate, but when a real estate is liquidated or the rent of the real estate is coming, that money cannot go back directly into NRE. It will go straight into a NRO account. NRO is not a straightforward repatriation friendly account. It has to go through a little bit of hoops before it can be freely sent out. Now this again, remember this part is more about the hassle part of NRI. Because this thing is not digital. उसके लिए paper flow लगता है, CA का certificate लगता है, which is form CNCB, which is a certification stating that the money is adequately taxed. So NRI, it takes time as well. The CA will also have the NRI to give evidence because it's more like an audit certificate. Now, the root of the money which is here, which comes from here and goes into these three elements, comes into NRE, and it can easily get out over here. Most of the banks will look out for a wire transfer form, but it's okay. That much hassle, NRIs are okay. And I can see some of the non-resident banks are now also coming up with digital ways. Let's see how quickly that gets adopted and institutionalized. But in most of the cases, they might ask for a wire transfer form. Chalta hai. I mean, when you're talking about lakhs and crores of money, an NRI is okay to send a one-off paper form. But the NRO route, if you take the same investment route via the NRO, the investments are no different. But everything which comes into NRO has to go through this hoop of getting an attestation from the chartered accountant to confirm that the money is taxed. Chartered accountant will also add on to their fees. It will add to the delays and the procedures which the NRI would have to face. Remember, these kind of things are not there in a non-resident country. And it pinches them to get their money back, they have to go through a 15-20 day mahina workup process to kind of get the money. No one likes that. And most of the time it comes as a surprise later on at the tail end, जब उनको पैसे की जरूरत होती है, पहले नहीं पता चलता. So when the end outcome is that the money has to complete the round circle and go back, then why should we even consider a NRO route? At times people consider खुला हुआ है तो इसी से करा देते हैं, easy है, फटाफट हो जाएगा, payment business book करो and let's get the revenue build. But then it's not good in long term for the client because sooner or later they will ask for the money back. थोड़ा time लगेगा. Let's get the NRE route and get them invested here. It's much more better to do this way. And over here, I think so. बहुत NRI की बातें कर ली. Let's kind of look into a quick one here. That how about looking into that who is a NRI? So this should have been the first part. Starting at the slides, and it's in the previous one it was, but I thought to kind of purposely take it right at the end because many people are aware of it. But even if they are not, these are more of a reference slides because I'm not going to go a lot in detail about here. At Network FP, considering all of you are pro members, there's a very, very detailed kind of session which was conducted by CA Vyomkesh Pathak. I'm giving you the reference here. It was done on 1st September. And it's a recommended seminar to do to understand in depth about who a NRI is and who is a resident and the breakup of a resident and a NRI. Broadly, इसमें क्या है? You are either a resident or a non-resident over here. You have to fulfill a few set of criteria in terms of number of days. Most of them us understand 180 days wala concept that if you have stayed in India for 180 days, you are a resident. Otherwise, you are non-resident. But हाँ, उसमें थोड़ा सा there are ifs and buts. that then you could, if you're not in 182 days, then you could be in India for 60 days and so on. I'm not going to take you into depths because even CAs have to always refer again and again. So why do we as advisors want to kind of do this? अपने लिए important क्या है to understand either you are a resident or you are a non-resident. If you are a resident, you could be two, either a resident ordinary resident or a resident not ordinary resident. Again, depend करता है how many days you have lived in India in the past, how many years you have been a resident or non-resident in the past. अपने लिए समझिए कि for this session, the only takeaway is you are either a resident or a non-resident. If you are a resident, you could be either a ordinary resident or a not ordinary resident. अब इसका importance क्या है? Let's see the importance of this and how to find out. I'm giving you one takeaway. The link over here of income tax department is a very fantastic tool. I use it all the time. I don't even need to remember now kitna din hua kya nahi hua. You go into this tool, select the assessment here. You can even forecast future by selecting the future dates, and then you can see by filling in all the ticks and entering the dates, it will give you right at the end whether you are an ordinary resident, not ordinary resident, or a non-resident. आपका काम हो गया. याद करने की जरूरत ही नहीं dates का. This is the best way to know the resident status for a client. And over here we kind of move into, but what is the use? Why do we have these three categories, resident, ordinary resident, not ordinary resident, non-resident? It's kind of importance है from here that if you if you are a resident, non-resident, one thing is for sure, India की income India में tax होगी. Income of India will be taxed in India. People in outside India, the NRIs think that Indian income will not be taxed because they are non-resident. No, it will be taxed. India's income is taxed in India. That's point one. The only flip side is if you are an ordinary resident, which means आप India में बहुत time रह चुके हो, which is applicable for most of our clients whom we deal with, then any income which you have in India or outside India will be taxed in India. उसका flip side क्या है? ये वाला. Where you are dealing with a non-resident, their respective country's income will be taxed in the respective country, but their global income will also get taxed in the respective country. This is the thing which kind of you need to be aware of. When you are dealing with an NRI, the respective country has a right to tax global income, which means any investment income which they have in India, right? So, hence, we'll move on to very, very briefly on top. कि India का tax requirement क्या है? I will not go into the tax rates again because the presentation which I shared, this one, has got all those things in detail. But I have a very, very summary bit that Indian taxation, let's not complicate, let's make it as simple as you and me, which is relevant for 90% if not more of the clients with whom we deal. NRIs can choose to be taxed like a normal resident. I'm quoting the section as well. Many people don't know about it. I mean, कोई जरूरत नहीं है कॉम्प्लिकेटेड स्ट्रक्चर में घुसने के लिए. जैसे आपका नॉर्मल रेजिडेंट क्लाइंट टैक्स होता है वैसे ही एनआरआई भी टैक्स हो सकता है. यस, दे माइट हैव सम बेनिफिशियल प्रोविजंस. If you want to invoke them, get a hold of a chartered accountant specialized in non-resident taxation, and he will help. But in most cases, assume आपका जो टैक्स रेट आपका क्लाइंट का है वही आप क्लाइंट का हो सकता है, एनआरआई क्लाइंट का. Filing of return is not mandatory, provided, big provide ना, that the client is investing as a non-resident. Many of your non-resident clients, you may not be aware, they might be just investing through the saving route. So income tax department is not even aware that the person is a non-resident. And when the income tax department is not aware of non-resident and the person is not filing tax returns, he is evading tax. In that, the flip side is if a person is investing like a non-resident through the non-resident accounts, in that case, relevant tax is already deducted. So then the income tax department says that if you have earnings which are predominantly investment income and capital gain, long-term capital gains, you don't need to file the tax returns because TDS has already been deducted. And lastly, you could invoke DTA, double tax avoidance agreements, which basically is trying to avoid an income getting taxed twice. I'll not take you into detail. जरूरत ही नहीं है because even international taxation वाले chartered accountants struggle here in this particular bit. I've got a few friends whom I kind of talk to. They have to continuously go through those scores and scores of documents. Each agreement, so with each agreement which is there is into 100 of odd pages. So no one will know all of them on the cuff of them. मोटा मोटा पता होता है. तो मैं वही आपको मोटा मोटा बताना चाह रहा हूँ आज. How does a DTA look like? First of all, DTA सारी countries का you can access here. Just to have a flavor of how do they look like. They aim only to avoid double taxation. This is a snippet of UK DTA. Broadly क्या लिखा हुआ है? Just as पढ़ते हैं. That essentially what it is trying to say that in simple words, UK may allow a credit of tax paid in India subject to terms and conditions. See, allowed is a credit against any UK tax. India tax में जो आपने pay किया, it is allowed as credit. That's a big positive. मतलब इंडिया में टैक्स डिडक्ट हुआ, वहां पे यूज कर सकते हो as a rebate. Another one देखते हैं, capital gain. Each country can tax their residents. इंडिया भी टैक्स कर सकता है, यूके भी टैक्स करेगा, यूएस भी कर सकता है, वॉट एवर इट इज डिपेंडिंग. ये यूके वाला है तो इसमें यूके का एग्जांपल देते हैं. ईच ऑफ द डीटीए माइट बी डिफरेंट. इंटरेस्ट में क्या बोल रहा है दैट लेट्स गो हियर blah 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 means interest paid in India may be taxed in UK, but India can choose to tax it at 15% up to 50%. That's what exactly it's trying to say, right? So effectively ज्यादा पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है, बट मोटा मोटा ये रियलाइज करना है दैट इंटरनेशनल टैक्सेशन में our NRI would be subject to tax in the respective country. So we need to ask them what are your taxation associated with investment in India, right? That helps. Now the next one which I have here is on the overseas taxation. So from what we understood so far, that you could have a tax neutral countries or tax friendly countries. They don't have draconian taxes or any further tax than what you have in India. Some examples which I've seen so far have been Singapore and Middle East. But then you could have extremely tax punitive countries who they go as far as they will completely disregard the taxation front of India. In terms, they will say we don't consider the investments, for example, in India as capital gain के लिए. हम उन्हें capital asset ही नहीं treat करते, हम उनको normal income करेंगे. Or they might invoke punitive rates. Objective could be anything. Broadly, off the cuff, it could be that they perhaps do not want their residents to invest outside in the respective country because it perhaps goes outside the tax net. But whatever it is, they could be punitive. So we need to be aware of them. I have got two specific countries as an example. UK and US. Let's go into the US one. In many forums, this has been kind of brought about. So it is extremely complicated. Let me put it this way. I've spoken to a few US chartered accountants, CPAs. Not all CPAs are also familiar about it. They also specialize in PFIC wala CPA would be the person to tell. So I spoke finally to one CPA who was able to kind of help me to understand for one of the clients with whom we were working. Now, effectively, to make it very simple, we don't need to specialize in PFICs or passive foreign investment companies, but we need to be aware of it. And वो awareness का क्या concept कहता है? That PFIC का full form है passive foreign investment company. Blah blah blah. बहुत बड़ा नाम है. But whatever it is, the word to focus is passive. What it means that dividend income, interest income, capital income, they are not active income. They are passive investments से निकल रहा है. And if any investment which a US resident, US के केस में तो सिटीजन भी आ जाता है, तो अगर अपना कोई भी US का सिटीजन इंडिया में रह रहा है और वो रेसिडेंट है, वो भी पकड़ाई में आ जाता है यहाँ पर. So if a US person is investing in a PFIC type of investment, वो PFIC कौन से होंगे इंडिया कॉन्टेक्स्ट में? सारे म्यूचुअल फंड्स, पेंशन फंड्स, ETFs, इंडेक्स फंड्स, REITs, इंश्योरेंस प्रोडक्ट्स, ये सारे के सारे PFIC है. बिकॉज इनमें होता क्या है, सब में यही चीज तो होती है, डिविडेंड इनकम, इंटरेस्ट इनकम, कैपिटल गेन, दीज आर ऑल पार्ट्स ऑफ इट. इफ दिस हैपेंस, PFIC's taxation could be punitive, which could mean that they might, which मैं आपको पहले बता दूं, that they might ignore capital gain and say that's other income. They may not allow carrying forward of losses. So which means मार्केट गिरा, आपने रिडीम किया, इंडिया में तो कैपिटल लॉस हो गया, वहां पर जीरो. एंड it could be as far as that they might consider mark-to-market gains as well, which means India अपनी हिंदी की कहावत है ना, खाया पिया कुछ नहीं, ग्लास थोड़ा बारह आना वाला कॉन्सेप्ट. they money market goes up down, आप unrealized gain पे टैक्स पे कर गए. and even worse, इससे आपको पता चलेगा, an investment done in the US by a US resident would be taxed as capital gain of roughly, let's say 15%. But if you get categorized under these, you are attracting 35+% taxes. So you can imagine how much draconian this could be. The next one which is UK. UK इतना बुरा नहीं है, but इतना भला भी नहीं है taxation में. So what UK says, they don't use the word PFIC, but they say overseas non-reporting and reporting funds. From where I last looked into it, most of the funds, if not all of the funds, where we in mutual funds categories and other PMS categories, mutual fund categories or funds category, they risk falling under the non-reporting status, which effectively means if you are under this non-reporting status, the distribution income, which is dividend and interest, और capital gain में loss हुआ या capital gain हुआ, they basically will not consider it any income coming out of a capital asset, which means उसको normal income समझेंगे. Now see the impact. UK में if a person is investing and gets dividend, the taxation could be anywhere from 7.5% to roughly 40. 2,000 pounds is exempted, which is great. I mean, India में that means roughly a crore of 2 crores worth of a portfolio would have roughly this much of dividend income, and that too will go exempted over there. But no, UK will not give you a dividend status. वो कहेगा इसको तो normal income consider करेंगे. Gets taxed 45 maximum slabs बता रहा हूँ. Capital gain में the UK slabs are roughly 10 to 20%. Up to 12,300, which is roughly 12 lakh rupees, is exempt over there per year. That also will get ignored. So basically, we are pushing all the capital gain and all the dividend income to roughly close to 45-50% taxation. Now you can imagine how much draconian this could be. Let's see how, when we have a scenario like this, and what options do we have? Here, I've just tried to make a snippet of the friendly and the non-friendly. Green are those friendly countries. Ambers are not so friendly countries. Mutual funds, passive funds, index fund, whatever you call it, same. अभी तक ये मैंने समझा है, और भी country add हो सकती हैं इसमें से. Middle East, Singapore, Canada falls here, US, UK falls here. Listed ETFs में again the same thing. ULIPs, if you see, it's exactly the same thing. That the ground rule comes in. Any product which ends up, or most product which comes under a fund structure gets attracted under a not so friendly tax status. तो करें क्या? वो हमारे पास क्लाइंट्स अगर यूएस और यूके का है, उनको कहते हैं नमस्कार, आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते, रियल एस्टेट में इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं, दैट्स ऑल व्हाट यू कैन डू. No, you have certain options. Just try to break away the fund structure. How? Equities में रहना है, अब the clients will go through direct equities. But इसमें पैसा कैसे कमेगा एक MFD का? Because we can't suggest MFD. PMS is a route there. You have a fund manager wrapper. Investments are done directly under the structure of a direct equity. DMAT में direct stocks होते हैं, so it is then relatively okay. Instead of being in a debt fund, how about direct bonds, fixed deposits? But we saw that slide as well, that a break-even point is roughly 7-8%. Would it fall under the requirement, and then subject to the 30, 40, 50% tax that they have? Would it make sense? That's a separate thing. But this is one of the options. Real estate में direct real estate holding could be an option versus REITs, for example. Gold funds से better raw gold could be an option. But again, would you want gold to be invested in India or other country? That's another discussion to consider. Now coming into the relatively last two parts of the slides, this one gets into non-resident banking. Now here, I've tried to mix a lot of things, and perhaps this is a slide where we'll talk more openly and try to understand the challenges. And this Priya perhaps would very nicely get into what Uma would also pick it up from here. So we are talking about when a person leaves India. Imagine yourself, you already have a saving account, DMAT account, broking account, mutual fund portfolio चल रहा है, सब चीज चल रहा है, right? You never thought, and all of a sudden job लगी, निकल गए इंडिया से बाहर. What do we do with ourselves then? Now, the questions which you would often see, people who are just leaving outside, they would say, I've just converted into an NRI, I'll wait for some time. Should I wait or not? That's also because the moment you kind of go from here into non-resident status, you have to complete your KYCs again, bank accounts को change कराना, /बंद कराना, DMAT account का status, everything has to, it's very, very jumbled up, and it's not very straightforward. एक form भरा और सब जगह हो गया, like a KYC, that you submit one KYC and every address is updated. It's not that straightforward because banking change होनी है, DMAT change होना है, broking change होना है. There are lots of bits. One of the perhaps the most irritating parts for NRIs, that's why they perhaps continue as a saving person. The other bit is, I may come back to India. That's a very good answer. If the person has gone temporarily, they may come back. तो क्यों सारा hassle लो? But then, more often than not, एक fixed term visa है, then it's other scenario. I rarely see clients coming back. They are stuck there for a long thing. Maybe this is also one interesting question which you guys might think about asking Uma, that how do NRIs feel once they've left there in terms of their coming back to India? Then I don't want to be disclosed as an NRI. Now, this is also I've seen quite often with my clients. No, boss, मुझे नहीं दिखाना क्योंकि then India will report under FATCA to the respective country or the common reporting standards, and I don't want to disclose my income. Now, this is clearly not a legal thing to do, and I advise against the clients. I would rather say to them that instead of doing this way, why don't you invest in a tax-efficient wrapper? You are putting in a lot of your strategic money into these investments. You don't want to be caught in one fine day where you are being considered as defaulting FEMA, which is the bank which will kind of pick up the foreign exchange related matters, or RBI may not be happy, or tax department may not be happy. Obviously, the probability you might put it as a low कि इतने बड़े-बड़े cases निकल जाते हैं हमारा क्या. So those those interesting discussions keep on coming. But my point is that investing via saving account is not legal. You have equally flexible investment routes to take. NRE and NRO accounts are at your disposal, at your client's disposal. I do acknowledge and appreciate that certain clients would be just going temporarily for a few quarters and may come back. Yeah, those kind of scenarios we can understand. But continuing those things for years and years, perhaps it's not the right way to do it. Then इसमें एक और चीज आ जाती है, आधार वाला पार्ट भी मुझे लाना चाहिए. There are lots of questions which keep on coming into our WhatsApp groups. NRIs का आधार लिंक होना है पैन के साथ, and we also know that in many cases those NRIs have become citizens of different countries as well. Now they're OCI holders. They don't have a Aadhaar, and now they are continuously getting bashed up with those messages because think from an income tax department's perspective, they don't know that you are an NRI. Now you say, how can they not know I've done my KYC? We must appreciate that our systems perhaps may not talk as much as we think they talk, right? I had one client whose PAN card got disabled by, not because of this reason, but because there was another jumbled up with another name, exactly same name. They thought it's a duplicate account. Then they froze the PAN account. Within a week, the KYC got disabled. His mutual fund statements got zeroed. Folios became invalid. Everything became zero. All statements became zero because everything was linked to a KYC which said PAN card doesn't exist. So all of a sudden he was kind of just pulling up out his hair that mera paisa kahan gaya boss? And then the PAN card had to be activated. Now, if your NRI's PAN card get disabled, not because they were not allowed to have a Aadhaar card, but because they never told the income tax department that they are a non-resident. So you need to then tell them, bhai, please tell your department. How do you do that? Apne profile mein jao and select your respective tax status, get your KYC updated. Then you could perhaps plead guilty, bhai, I don't have a Aadhaar card because I'm a non-resident. But otherwise you are putting yourself at risk. Now, NRE, NRO, internet is full of that data point. I don't want to kind of get you all into differences between NRE and NRO. The core difference you could be, NRE is where money comes from outside India and can go easily outside India, no questions asked. Hence, there's a restriction in what money can be deposited in NRE. You saw the example which we saw here. NRE, any financial instrument invested out of NRE can easily come back. But the moment the trail becomes muddy, that's a place where the money cannot get back into NRE and has to go through this route to come back into NRE. So NRE incoming is restricted except from what it comes from up here or from the investments which are financial in nature and it comes back. NRO it's just like your saving account. Money can go in and go out for whatever your India needs, be it gifts, be it rentals, or whatever you talk about, right? And NRE mein paisa, when it is invested, it is tax-free in India. Remember, the point is tax-free in India. It's not tax-free in the respective countries always. NRE also offers a hassle-free repatriation. Money can go out of the country very easily. You don't need to be involved with a chartered accountant to give you that certificate. And other bit is that if you only have a capital gain and investment income, as I told you earlier, you don't even need to file a tax return. So effectively, I would suggest any non-resident clients, we should try and help them to transition from a saving into non-resident, or if they're starting a clean slate, the only and the best way is NRE. And if they've got their investments which are lying already in India, and I would really appreciate, I can see now perhaps Uma over there, if she could also, I'm sure she might have this in a list of things to consider, that the NRIs also have their money pool in India. how do we manage that money pool? That money pool is best managed through this route, NRO account. It can accept your Indian money coming in. But where possible, we should help our NRI clients to transition them outside the saving route, get them categorized as NRIs, which means help them in their fat cars. I do it all the time for my clients. It is painful. It takes a lot of effort. Most of the time, it does not get you any revenue, but cost, and only cost. But long term, it helps you because it does a very big tick on the hassle wala element. And if you've taken the hassle of the client away for non-resident, I'm telling you, he'll be your fan for life and you'll get a lot of references. Not all advisors take that step ahead to take that hassle away and are happy to wait patiently for even a couple of months जब तक NRE account नहीं खुल गया, right? So it's a legal way. Why to do it other way? It can be done easily. So this brings an end to my conversation today. I hope I've touched upon quite a few areas which are relevant from a non-resident. And I'm really eager to hear from Uma how how she feels and sees things from where she is.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Puneet. People have already started putting in. Thanks a lot for the wonderful session. And it was just sort of the trailer, and people have been waiting for ma'am to join in. Firstly, thank you so much for joining in, ma'am. And before I could move forward, if I can request people to quickly take a feedback of this particular session before I hand it over to Sadik, and let me quickly launch a poll. And if people can join in and take this poll, and at the same time, over to you, Sadik. People are looking forward to what's coming next.
All right, Uma ma'am, thank you so much for joining in. A very, very warm welcome from India to you, from all your friends across India who have joined in, all the financial advisors. Thanks for taking out time. I know that it's very early morning out there. What's the time, ma'am, out there?
Ma'am, firstly, you need to unmute yourself. Very, very good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's not, we just kind of had this daylight saving change. So it's officially 7:30 in the morning. So we are good.
7:30 in the morning. Good. Many of us still wake up at that time here in India. Around 7.
Oh, yeah, the body clock is 6:30, so it's a little weird, but we are good. It's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, ma'am, thanks a lot, and we all have loved your work. We still love your work. We follow your articles on Economic Times, and many of us, I think, we have been beneficiary of your trainings. Maybe at ICICI or at the CIL or otherwise, you've done a lot of training. So either we are a beneficiary or the next level is we are fans of yours. So how many of us friends here on the group have been a beneficiary of Uma ma'am's teachings and trainings, or you have been a fan? Either say beneficiary or fan, whichever is applicable to you. Let's see that. Okay, you've been a fan, beneficiary, also a fan. Fan, beneficiary, fan. Okay, so that's the love and respect from all of us to you. So thank you so much. Welcome once again.
I'm so touched. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Before we get on to the session and the technical session, this is about how do we deal with NRIs and how we best can serve NRIs. I wanted to ask you a quick question. Which is a little bit more personal than not related to the topic. What is it that one thing? It's been now how many years? 4, 5 years.
6 years now.
6 years you've been in US, right? And I'm sure you kind of miss India to some extent.
I do.
So what is it that one thing that you miss about about personal life and professional life? Let's talk both quickly. Maybe a sentence, maybe a word or a sentence, whatever you feel right. Personal life and professional life. What's that?
People, connections, relationships. That's what I miss.
Both the sides.
Yes, I miss both the sides. I miss the people. India is wonderful. You have to be outside to know it. I miss India a lot. Yeah.
So the grass is always greener on the other side. We all aspire. Many of the people in India aspire to go to US and developed countries, but people
US
are
is nice. Both are nice. Both are nice in their own way. But yes, having lived in India for 54 years of my life, I think I miss India. Yeah.
all right, ma'am. With that, thank you so much. Over to you, Priya. Welcome once again, and let's get on to the session. Enjoy. Let's all benefit from Uma's insight and experience in this. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harik, for joining in. And I'm sure, thank you once again, ma'am, for accepting our invitation, especially
Pleasure.
and friends, believe me, a lot of insights coming, practical and direct insights coming in the next one. We had a blast during the rehearsals as well, just getting to know what's actually happening there. A great conversation. And that's what ma'am had mentioned even during the rehearsal, that she's looking forward to connect with people back after a long time. So thank you so much for accepting our invite. And I'm sure not a lot of introduction required, but we have the chairperson and co-founder of CIEL, started long back in 2007, authors of hundreds and hundreds of articles. You'll find her in Economic Times, Times of India. She's been part of VP Knowledge Management at ICICI Group before, and prior to which she's been a professor at the Indian Institute of Capital Markets. It's a pleasure to have you, ma'am, joining in. And we're all looking forward to hearing you over the next 30, 40 minutes, and then some insightful conversation questions with Puneet, who will be joining back us. So over to you for the next, and waiting for you to share the screen, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, you may share the screen and we can get started.
All right. I'll go to the presentation in a minute. Before then, I think I owe a thank you to Sadik for putting me back on the screen. People who know me as a trainer know that I just love I just love teaching and training. And a few of us are very fortunate to be in a profession we love, and I think I'm one of those fortunate people. I do miss the trainings sitting this far, and Zoom training is not like classroom training where I'm not able to see the audience. I do, but it is wonderful. I'm delighted that, and I am a fan of Network FP. I am Salik's fan too. I love his work. I love everything that FP is doing, and Network FP is known to be innovative and different in what they do, and I just love it. All the best for everything that you do. And when I I don't know who's in the audience, but because there's a large number of people who are there, and but my job gave me this opportunity to travel across the country and to meet so many people for such a long time, from the initial days of teaching about equity, the reason need to be in equity, to going all the way to mutual funds and others. I'm very grateful. For those of you who are here, you made my life so beautiful. Thank you. Over to the presentation now. I will. Those of you who know me.
The audience, I can already see, in the chat, love you, ma'am, for the one because of whom I'm here. Used to welcome your visits for trainings at Chennai. We have Mohsen. So I'm just reading out a couple of names from the chat.
Thank you. I have received so much of love. I'm in that age where these things can make me a little emotional. Thank you so much. It's been a little over 6 years since I have been in the US, and like most people who come here, I think initially we were posted here for 3 years, and I had thought that I'm going to be here for 3 years and go back. And my husband's work, he has been extended again and again, and so we are looking at staying here. I think I don't know really how long it's going to be. It was 3 years, and then it became 3 more years, and now it's become 3 more years. So that's how it has been. All right. So over to the presentation and those of you who know me and also follow my columns know that I'm not a big fan of numbers, facts, and figures, because I believe that these technical things are learned more immersively. They can't be learned in a conversation. See, they need to be learned like how Puneet was pointing out to you. There are specifics, and all of those tax aspects require more intensive online learning or classroom learning or self-learning over a long period of time. So I won't pretend that I'm going to leave you with some something, earth-shattering in the next hour. No, I'm going to just have a conversation from this side, trying to point out to you what I have known as an NRI investor, my experience with both the cultures, and my interactions with both the Americans as well as the Indians. Yes, I am part of several investment clubs here. So it's an interesting thing. So that's what I want to be able to share some of those. So let me share screen and open the presentation. There are a few things here. So not much, I would say. There are just about 6 slides, 6 aspects that we will discuss. Okay. So let's begin with this. Let me begin with breaking the first myth. No NRI invests in mutual funds other than the retirement portfolio. So all the story that you're hearing, Americans are big investors in mutual funds, or har ghar mein mutual fund hota hai. It is primarily because of the 401k requirement, where everybody is required to contribute to their retirement and build. It's a defined contribution plan that runs here. So everyone is very worried about their retirement. You know that it's a country where people like to be independent, and everyone contributes, and therefore the mutual fund investment is what is in the 401k, and there are many variants to it. There's one in which there is an employer-employee contribution, and then there's one in which you make your own contribution if you're self-employed, and so on and so forth. So this retirement portfolio can be modified, changed, things, proportions modified without any tax implications. So every household has this retirement saving, and this retirement saving is what is in mutual funds. Left to themselves, they are all real estate and stock investors. Invariably, and of course for the purposes of saving taxes, there is some amount of bond holding, the local bonds and other bond holding. But there are very few who will make a conscious mutual fund choice. So if as a trainer, if I were to look at the US market, I would say there is a huge potential to go across and tell people that they must invest in mutual funds. It might come as a surprise to you, but that's the reality. Okay. So then the second thing is that there is a lot of direct investing. Direct investing is a culture. See, probably what is happening is, there is a huge startup culture that is there here. The excitement about businesses, excitement about industries, and these are not like what you see outside of India or in what do you say, in chat forums or in social media. It's not as if everybody is considering whether they should invest in Tesla or Google. No, it's not about the big names. It is about the unknown small names. It's not about crypto itself, but about companies that are providing technology and back-end support and operational support for the cryptocurrency. You see, so there is a very, very thriving startup culture, innovation culture, and the huge belief that small business ideas can become big. So equity investing is a big deal. Pretty much every household, every NRI here is a direct equity investor. Many of them have accounts with brokerages. They have discount brokerage trading accounts. They're very active participants in the direct equity market. They're also very active players in derivatives. A large number of groups, investor groups, are present in which they invest. They discuss stock ideas. People get into, so it can be various levels of detail. Some of these groups are very intense, where there will be a thorough discussion of the fundamentals, the management, the industry, by extremely well-informed investors. Some of these can just be like how we have in India, tips and tricks, just give me some names kind of groups, okay? But they're present. Direct investing is a big deal. Brokerage costs are lower. The convenience is extremely high, which is the third thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, you also have very great ease in being able to buy property. Now, the property buying and selling, the markets are extremely well regulated. You deal with just one agency. You just deal with the legal firm. They will take care of everything. There is the broker and there is the legal firm. Pretty much everything. You don't have to, except for stepping out to see the house. You can engage a whole range of agencies online, interact with them online and complete it, and go on the signing day and simply sign your documents. You can buy or sell a house in a week. It's possible to close a deal within a week, including the bank loan. And the interest rates at present are about 2.5%. So, and most houses are 90% funded by mortgages. You get 15 or 30-year mortgages very easily. Banks are the lending system is extremely well oiled. And if you go to buy a car, the dealer themselves will tie up the entire portions of the bank loan for you without you having to do anything. And signatures are all electronic. So, very easy. And there are a lot of concessions for buying property. For example, if you notice the doctors, Indian doctors who are here in the US, you'll find that a lot of them hold a lot of farmland. There is tremendous amount of, there are states, for example, like Florida, which will give you money for being a farmer. Forget you paying taxes. Okay, so there is a huge amount of concession that is available for holding property. NRIs in here are very big property and land investors. They find it very convenient. So they're direct stock investors, they're property and land investors, and only to a limited extent mutual fund investors. Okay. So that's the first point I wanted to make, which is where we are now. Have I become that person? I'll talk about my travails a little. I'm definitely not doing property and land. Direct investing, yes. And by virtue of coming from the investment industry, I'm very wary of doing direct investment because you can go wrong. As a retail investor, you can miss something, because you're not. But information availability is good. Yes, I'm a direct investor through a brokerage. I am also a mutual fund investor through my advisory organization. I have an account with one of the leading broking firms, which offers me. My bank also offers me advisory services where they will invest in mutual funds according to my requirement. And yes, my husband has a 401k portfolio which is invested in mutual funds too. Now, let me talk about the cultural differences. Now, these are important when you are dealing with an NR customer. I am giving these points of view to you as someone who I can't say I've not lived here too long. I've lived here only for 6 years. But for most part of my stay here, I have not lived in the Indian communities, but I've lived close to my husband's office, which is closer to which is where many, so I have a lot of American friends from other nationalities than I have Indian friends. I do have a lot of Indian friends too. So I'm trying to, I can't claim great knowledge, as I said. I mean, this is just based on my limited interactions and my observations. The first thing is rule of the law. Rule of the law is everything here in the US. You can do anything as long as you do not break the law. So everything is determined by, there are very clear laws on how you can have a pet, whether the pet must be leashed, whether the pet can bark, whether the pet can be outside. It's a litigious society. If you have broken a law, for example, a person has fallen and then you rush to help, you will have to call 911. That is the rule. You cannot offer, if you're not qualified, you cannot offer a first aid because there'll be liability. If something happens to that person, you are supposed to have intervened without authority. So it's as, I'm not saying that life is difficult. Life is actually very easy because the rules are there everywhere. That is the big cultural difference. There's a very transactional economy, you see, where everything is a series of steps. Everyone knows what these steps are. And all interactions are extremely pleasant. The amount of grace that you see here is unthinkable. So everyone will talk to you very sweetly because that's what is expected. You're not supposed to raise your voice. You're not supposed to yell. You're not supposed to lose your cool. You're not supposed to make accusations. People will always try to make the other comfortable. And given the diversity, now what happens is that why can't we have, people ask me, why can't we have the rule of the law in India? You can't, because we are a relationship-based economy. The small Kothmir vendor to whom I'm talking will know my daughter is pregnant and will say, this guy shop has the newest machli, which is very good. You should give it to her. This is where you will get the jati booty. Or she will look at my face and she will say, you're looking tired and you have not slept well. We don't see it as intrusion. The thing is, we are looking to build relationships everywhere. जिससे भी मिलो उनसे हम एक रिश्ता बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं और हमें ये अच्छा लगता है. We are a relationship based economy. तो हर कोई चीज में we raise it to this thing of क्या आपको नहीं मालूम है कि मैं कौन हूँ, that kind of stuff. Two, trying to see whether we can get any concession because of who we are. There is always भगवान के सामने भी अपना अलग अलग क्यूज होते हैं, है ना. तो वहाँ के रिश्ते में भी हम लोग थोड़ा सा भाव कर लेते हैं. सो ये है कि we are that's a big cultural difference. Now, which is better? They're both fine. In a relation-based culture, there is so much warmth, there is so much spontaneity, there is so much intuition, there is so much of true display of feelings. Okay. In the place with the rule of law, it's extremely easy to operate. Now, that's a big cultural difference. Now, in the US, your social security is your tax identity, and that's that. End of the year, all your service providers will send you statements that can simply be attached to your tax return. आपको देखने की भी जरूरत नहीं है कि कितना डिविडेंड आया है, कितना शॉर्ट टर्म गेन है, उसमें कितना टैक्सेस. Everything is already there. You just have to attach it. And there is no question of hiding from the taxman because your identity is known in every transaction that you're there, unless you're operating in a cash society. You are an illegal immigrant and you are receiving cash for your services and you're spending cash. Then you are probably hiding from the tax net, so to say. But otherwise, the ease of operation is so high. As I said, for most things, including buying your house, you don't have to move from your desk. And because of the rule of the law, the amount of reporting. Now, for example, if my broker will have to put a deal through with me, there is a conversation. I have to pick up the phone and talk to him. That conversation is recorded and is stored so that my permission for that deal is explicit. Now, it's not as if you have to do it every time, but you can make setups in which you're providing these discretionary choices, and documents are sent to you and you can do an electronic signature. So the ease of operation is so high only because I can talk about this as an Indian who is viewing this and wanting for this to happen in India. The best minds are working on the design. There is so much emphasis on the design. क्या चीज कैसी होनी चाहिए, इसकी जो डिसीजन जो है वो जिन लोगों को जानकारी है वो लेते हैं. हमारे यहाँ क्या है, जिनको each one of us is a leader. हर कोई डिसीजन ले लेता है and everybody thinks that this is how it has to be done. और हम झगड़ते बहुत हैं और we hold it to our heart saying कि ऐसा ही होना चाहिए. So the ability for various departments to talk to one another and look at a common goal of making it easy for the investor is not happening because each one is operating in a different silo. Here there's a requirement for everything to happen together. So for an NR investor, if he doesn't see a rule of the law or if he doesn't see ease of operation, he's switched off. So he is an Indian, but then a lot of them have come and worked here for such a long period of time that they're very used to. You get used to this. You get used to, what we eat, how clean we keep our homes. I have always mentioned this. Most Americans keep impeccably clean homes. Impeccably clean homes. And eat fantastic food. Nobody here is eating at McDonald's and those foods are for the poor, okay? People who can't afford healthy food Okay, but when we say that a lot of Americans are not saving, a lot of Americans are not healthy, we're really talking about a large working class that is spending most of its money on uh, rent, because you have to pay rent or own a house, then you have an EMI, you need a car. Unfortunately, America is built for the car because roads are being constructed everywhere and people live far away. So you really can't function without a car or without knowing to drive. So when the money is gone into all of this, there is very little to save. So when people say that Americans save very little, you should realize that the other expenses that are there is much higher. Don't spend much on food, but you do end up spending on education, on transport, on home, on clothes. And Americans are very fond of eating out, so there is a lot of money that's spent on eating out, and there are fantastic restaurants that classic category that cater to various uses. But our focus is not the American alone. Our focus is the NRI. NRIs are huge savers, huge savers. Okay, they save a lot of money. They earn very well. They save very well. So they continue to keep that Indian culture, which is there. So they get used to these cultural differences in terms of rule of law and ease of operation. It will remain a limitation for India. Okay, must keep this in mind that they're used to something which is really very fast, very cordial and quick. And the question of legal recourse. See, that's the biggest problem NRIs who deal with Indian situations face. Now, when you have invested in a business or when you have worked with somebody and then you find that what was promised was not delivered, you don't have a legal recourse. That's very shocking to a lot of people who live in America. They're saying, look, I have been fooled, I've been ripped off. So I went to the bank to just renew my deposit and I was sweet talked into buying this product. And this person did not tell me it was an insurance product. I have met so many NRIs who have obnoxious insurance policies and they believe that these are mutual funds because they've been sold as funds. A lot of them would argue with me saying that no, mera mutual fund hi hai. I'm saying, Carol, as we looked at the paper and looked at what is there now, the thing is, most investors, NR investors, Indian investors, whoever, they're not reading all the documents and all the fine print. You see, they are just going by the broad understanding, and many of them are too busy to be very worried. And here in the US, they have the comfort that they won't be fooled because there's a rule of the law. And even if they believe they're being fooled, they have legal recourse saying this is what was done. And if it is established, the penalties are too high. The penalties are very severe, very high. Now, you don't have the comfort of legal recourse when you're investing in India, so that creates the problem. And the fourth one is that there is this culture of do it yourself. Most work here, I mean, you don't have household help. You can hire people, but somebody comes home to clean our house once a week. She will drive in her car with an entire set of cleaning materials. She's not going to talk a word. She won't ask even for a cup of water. She would have brought her own drink. She will come into the house. She won't utter a word apart from wishing you and smiling as soon as she comes in. She works for 4 hours, cleans every nook, every cranny, scrubs everything. Okay, she and her sister, there are a team of 2 that comes in. The entire house is completely clean to a sparkle and a beautiful thing, and she takes $250 for doing this. So imagine the number of people I would have in India if I was spending $250 a week for just getting the house cleaned. But that's how it is. So it's very expensive to hire labor here. So people are very used to doing their work themselves. There is a DIY culture. So when they have to hire somebody, they're looking at all these 3 things that I'm saying. They're looking at rule of the law, they're looking at ease of operation, they're looking at legal recourse. Okay, so you will find that to be a slightly uphill task. We'll come to those strategies a little bit. So I'm just talking about the cultural differences. You're used to doing things yourself and doing it quickly, doing it without hassle, and with the comfort that there is a law somewhere there that's protecting you. Broadly, the outlook. So when NRIs come to India and brag, about it. It is not about one being better or worse. It is just that they are different. One is a relationship based. People tell me, oh, there are no road rules in India. I can't imagine traffic at a light just waiting in line in a lane, because the amount of road we have and the number of people we have are so disproportionate. There is no way you can drive in the Indian road other than treating it like a live animal. It's like a live game, you know. You have to keep guessing all the time. वो जाएगा कि मैं जा रहा हूँ. I mean, किसका? I remember, traffic signal में there is somebody showing the right indicator on है, किसी का left indicator on है, किसी का distress light on है. तो मैं बोल रही थी कि उसने distress डाल के बीच में खड़ा है. नहीं मैडम, वो सीधा जा रहा है. तो अपने यहाँ अपना रूल्स हम बना लेते हैं. कोई सबके लिए एक रूल बनाना इंडिया में मुश्किल है. कोई भी रूल आप बना दो, किसी को अच्छा लगेगा, किसी को नहीं लगेगा. सो इट्स अ डिफरेंट कल्चर जहाँ पे यू डोंट हैव थिंग्स स्टैंड स्टिल लाइक फ्लड आ गया तो यू आर ऑल वेटिंग हियर फॉर द गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज टू कम इन. इंडिया में नहीं. पीपल विल रोल अप देयर स्लीव्स एंड गो टू वर्क. वहीं पे लोग रेजिस्ट्रेशन ले लेते हैं और वहीं पे उसको इम्प्लीमेंट कर लेते हैं. हमारा जो स्पॉन्टेनिटी है, हमारा जो इंस्टेंटेनियस रिस्पॉन्स है, हमारी जो ह्यूमैनिटी है, हमारी जो रिलेशनशिप, रिश्ता बनाने की जो मन है, वो अनमोल है. उसमें कुछ कमी नहीं है, बट बात ये है कि वो अलग है. So when you're dealing with somebody from another country, you need to keep in mind that उनकी जो आदतें हैं वो थोड़ी अलग हो सकती है. और एक आखिरी बात ये है कि work and insurance. You'll find that most people are paranoid about having health insurance. Every NRI you meet will be doing, sometimes you'll find that they'll be doing some inane jobs, you say, why are you doing this? But they'll be doing it because the employer has to cover it, provide insurance. The cost of hospitalization is incredibly high. Incredibly high. Every procedure, an X-ray will cost you about $600, $700. So it's impossible to be able to pay for the medical bills from your pockets. So everybody will have insurance because they are working, or they will have insurance because they have citizens and they are eligible for Mediclaim after a particular age. So most of them will work till 65 and will, so they will worry a lot about insurance costs. So those are cultural differences. Let me move on to the next thing in terms of the market, what the worries are. And so let me kind of make this point up front. Okay. If you're looking for the NRI money in terms of the NRI taking his dollar earnings, converting it through an NRI account and investing in India because India is a very attractive investment destination, आप बहुत बड़ा सपना देख रहे हो. नहीं होता है. That's not what they're looking at. That's not the market. For all the reasons that I explained to you just now. It's very easy to invest here. And if you make a return argument, the S&P delivered 26% last year. So it is very difficult to beat the kind of returns that stocks in the US offer in a good portfolio or even in the index. Okay. So people will not buy this idea that there are stock ideas or there are investment ideas which are good. And mutual fund investing is not a culture. I really wish all the NRs here invested in Indian mutual funds. I really wish. I talk to them about it. But then there is FATCA. You can't invest sitting from here. I mean, it is not as if the investors do not want the information to be available to the IRS. But the problem really is that you can't. Look at me. I mean, my husband's Provident Fund. If there is an advisor here who can solve this problem for me, I'm very happy to interact. I have my husband's Provident Fund which has stopped earning interest. He worked for 35 years, so it's a sizable amount of money which I have to withdraw because the interest becomes taxable after a period of time. The money is lying in the savings bank account because I cannot invest in mutual funds. My only choice is to do ETFs, and I'm dragging my feet because it's a sizable amount and it's going to alter my portfolio strategy if I put this money in an index. But it looks like I might end up using the PIS account and putting the money in ETFs because it seems to be difficult to invest in mutual funds. So, okay, personal story apart. So the thing is that, am I investing the money that I'm not earning here, my husband is earning? Am I investing his money in India, or am I looking to invest his money in India? For the reasons I just explained to you, no. Very easy to invest here, very good returns, very clean, rule of law, legal recourse, very cheap. So it's difficult. So that conversion is difficult. However, every NRI, including me, has India assets. And we are not, for whatever reasons, you call it patriotism, you call it attachment, you call it the distant dream of one day going back to India. In my case, yes, I'm very so actively looking to come back to India. But my NRI friends say, you're only abhi 6 saal hua hai, plus 4 saal ke baad dekhte hain. I don't know really. Okay. People also ask me, do I like India or do I like America? I like both. I love India, I love America. So I like both. Things to like in both. But what I'm telling you is that every NRI has an India corpus. They have India assets. That's your market. It is not the US money. If you get the US money to be invested in India, great. But most of the time, these money transfers happen when they have relatives, parents. Let me tell you this. For most NRs, we are just fortunate that we moved. In fact, we moved because our parents were no more. My husband had an opportunity to come here earlier. He refused it because his parents were living with us and he didn't want to leave them behind. So we made that conscious call. But for most NRs, the biggest worry is having parents back in India. You'll find them absolutely guilt-ridden and they are accused by everybody. हो पैसे के पीछे आप भागे हो, आप छोड़ के गए हो, आप देख नहीं रहे हो. So the whole पूरी दुनिया उनको ये बता देती है कि बस आप अपने पेरेंट्स को मतलब देखभाल नहीं किया आपने. Okay, it's an unfair allegation. We all know it. But वो तो होता है. So what happens is that they all have a corpus. They will all renovate the parents' house. They will all buy something for them. They will buy in a retirement home. They will transfer money to make sure that this money, their parents are very well taken care of. So there is a corpus which is in India. It requires management. It is hugely poorly managed today. This is the emotional connect. If you tell them that you're going to take care of their parents' incomes, their financial requirements, their portfolio, and you will be able to you won't get direct money in their name, but they will send more money to their parents once they know that this money is well taken care of. It need not be just parents, it can be siblings, it can be close family, but NRs take it upon themselves as their responsibility to maintain family back home. And so it is a rupee portfolio for a resident Indian, but it is funded by NRs. It's a huge market. It's a huge, untapped, uncared for, unserviced market. There's some people servicing, but not serviced very well. And a lot of this money is again going into Indian real estate, getting locked in, it's getting wrongly invested. So once it's invested in the names of resident Indians, I think none of these problems exist. Your Aadhaar and your PAN and your FATCA, and none of these exist. And this money can be very well invested and managed. And this is one. The second thing is wealth transfer. Now, this is a big thing. Wealth transfer is happening in two levels. One, a lot of people who are today NRs, who are sitting here in the US, their parents have left some 2 BHK flats for them in India, and they don't know what to do with it. And some gold, this and that, some old shares. I have an NR friend who discovered that her father left behind a trunk full of certificates. She doesn't know what to do. And these are all top names. A whole trunk of paper. She didn't know its existence until he died. So there are people who are leaving behind. I wrote a column about it earlier. Please be careful about what you leave behind. Don't make it a problem. A lot of NRs are making the same mistake. They are buying property in India, sitting here, hoping that it will be an asset for their children. And these children I tell you, one of the biggest reasons why they don't return is that they are all having their Indian roots. They try their best to give their children. You see the children here, my heart goes out to them. My children are more Western than them. You know, they wear Indian clothes, they celebrate Indian this thing, they recite shlokas. I'm just so touched. My son doesn't know one of it, okay? They will recite shlokas, they will sing Carnatic music. The girls know Bharatnatyam, all right. But they're Americans. They're not planning to go back to India. They're American citizens, born here. So there are two levels of wealth transfer happening. Money that is coming to the present generation left behind by their parents, and money that this generation is leaving behind for its children, and it requires management. There's a huge market to convert these into financial assets. These are fixed assets, these are uncared for assets. So they can be shares, there can be mutual funds, there can be balances in PPF accounts. There are every NR I know here has a PPF account that has gone inoperative. They cannot operate it as NRs and they have not gone and redeemed it. So a lot of investor education initiatives in India are funded by these kind of abandoned accounts in India. So there is a market for the transference of that, which is what brings me to that question of incomplete processes and paperwork. A lot of them have these stories. As Puneet was pointing out to you, there may or may not be money in some of these activities, but there is an opportunity for building a bridge because many times an NR investor doesn't know who to deal with. You go to the bank, you're worried about mis-selling. You go to individual investors, advisors, you're not too sure whether you should trust them. Dealing directly with the with agencies is a problem. See, there is a certain trust in broking accounts and others, but otherwise, broadly, there are negative experiences and trust deficits. So the ability to do something to be able to get this market is something. And I just wanted to point that out to you that these are the worries. These are they will never kind of leave the Indian connection, at least this generation. I don't know what will happen to the next generation. At least this generation of earning individuals still have their India connections. It's just that they cannot travel as often and they are very big donors. They're very big donors to great causes in India. So they care for and they want to be involved. They really wish that it is done in a trustworthy and in a reliable manner. Okay? There is a demand that is present. What are the challenges? I think we discussed some of these challenges. I'll just quickly go over this. They're very unwilling to deal with individuals. As I said, they are very worried about being ripped off, being fooled, and whether the promises can be touched and trusted, and whether there'll be a trust recourse. So you have to be able to build that trust bridge. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. Most of them, referrals will work very well. So if you're working with their parents or their relatives, and they have a good word about you, you might get an entry. So you're managing the money, the corpus of the parents back in India, and the parents are able to tell their children who are here that this particular advisor has been good and is trustworthy and has done a good job, then some doors might open for you. Yeah, so that's a first challenge to. And the second thing which you must remember, which is very funny, is this. Most people, I didn't expect this, that has to include me going forward. We are all stuck to the year in which we came here. You don't know, you've just missed everything that's happened in India after that. So you still think you must go attend any of these NRI functions. They all look like sceneries out of Hum Aapke Hai Kaun. I want to tell them, guys, people in India don't dress such bizarrely. Fashion in India has become so elegant and so beautiful. No one wears these kind of garish costumes. But but the thing is that they are all. It's very funny. It's very very funny. How conservative some Indian women and men here are, and they're very shocked that I talk to men. I talk finance, so I talk to men. There are several Indian friends, I kid you not, who tell me that, आप कैसे बात कर लेते हो? मतलब, because they came in 91, 92, you get me? So they are like stuck, very stuck with the India of the time they left. And I don't know whether I'm going to be stuck in 2015. thanks to my work and my family, I do visit India often. But the last 2 years, because of Corona, has been a break. But otherwise, because of CL, I used to get to India quite often. But I can't claim to know what's going on. Okay. So what you're doing, therefore, is whether you know it or not, you have a US frame of reference because this is what your daily, day-to-day reference, right? And you're fitting this reference. So when you pick up the phone and somebody says, "Hello, how are you? How has your day been? I hope all is well," and all that, and then you pick up the phone in India, bolo. So then it is a problem because you have to get used to that. You have to get used to the fact that the way transactions happen in India are different. They're not sugar coated like how it is here. But you will get deeper relationships and people will really care and so on and so forth. So there is a certain challenge that I mean you can't become a US person to deal with the US NRIs. But I can tell you that being gracious and pleasant in your conversations and making only promises that you can keep are two good practices straight away. Do not build expectations. Do not say things that won't happen, and don't be too eager to paint a very positive picture. Right? As long as it is to the facts and it is brief and it is gracious and nice, I think you will have a listening ear. So they don't trust stories. If you think that there is an India story that you have to talk to them, even when I talk to them, I remember in one of our US investor meet, we had to bring up a favorite stock, and when I spoke to them about HDFC Bank, they were astounded at the numbers and the quality of the stock. They were astounded. They said, "We didn't know that such a business existed in India." I said, "This is one. I can show you 100." But there is a trust deficit. There is a lack of information. There is a lack of belief. I don't have any political affiliations, but I can say that Modi has made a big difference to this trust deficit. People come around to thinking that there is a government that is working. Both the NRs as well as the foreigners have begun to believe that things are working in India, but then we know the media, so things are and then there are rupee assets from rupee incomes. That's really, I mentioned this earlier. It is not that your NR client is going to transfer dollars because there is a depreciating rupee. There is a better opportunity here in which they have a better control. So it's going to take a lot to be able to take dollar assets and take them, convert them into Indian rupees and get into the repatriation issues. So, but it will still happen if you have a conduit. If there is a relative, if there is a sibling, if there is a parent, if there is a friend, a well-wisher to whom this money will have to be transferred, it will happen. Okay, I think I've taken a lot of. This is the last line. As I have mentioned, I think that probably is the single point that I want to make. There are India assets waiting to be managed. There are transfers required. There are management reporting, taxation ideas to worry about. So there is a whole gamut of things that are waiting to be managed. Every NRI has India assets, which goes across jewelry, property, land, gold, mutual funds, deposits, post office, PPFs, bonds, various things. Okay, many of them are sold property and are holding some bonds and do not know what to do. They don't even know these bonds have matured, so on and so forth. So it's a huge opportunity for managing India assets. There are very few global products. Okay, I would think that ETFs is a big opportunity. They invest in a lot of index funds here. They will invest in such a similar product, and to the extent that these can be bought through a PAS account is a big advantage. PAS accounts do sell very well here. There is a lot of interest in AIS, angel investing, funding of new ideas, funding of newer, smaller businesses. Portfolio management scheme experience has been mixed. Some are good, many are bad. So it's a difficult thing. But there is a lot of interest in supporting new, innovative businesses started by youngsters. Okay, there is a huge interest. My son works for private equity, and he tells me that the business ideas in India are out of the world, and his global business agrees that India is one of the top markets for innovative new startups. But yes, he says diligence is a problem. You have to sift through 100 to get two that are good, worth investing, but those two are stars. That's what he says. A lot of NRs are aware of this. Angel investing is a big deal. They would be willing to support ventures. But yes, from an advisory perspective, the scope is somewhat limited to Indian assets primarily. But as I said, once that is cracked, there is probably an opportunity for looking at more. But then between a third world uh, experience with cultural differences and all of that, and a first world protected environment, people who live here will keep swerving, will keep going back to their comfort zone. You see, that's the problem. They'll keep going back to, oh, but I can sign this electronically, but this is not required. Oh, this is very easy here. So it can become a little annoying when they keep referring to, we are saying in India, look, we are getting there, okay? We are all doing it and we are getting there. Look at our passport. Okay, that I have to tell you. One of the biggest things that has appealed to the NRs is the speed with which the passports are issued. They are amazed. They say, oh, India is changing. You tell them the passport story, they'll say, yeah, India is changing. Yeah. So, because we believe that there is a process that is happening really quickly. So, it is a challenge, but it is not so insurmountable. It is not as if no opportunities exist. There are opportunities. And I think should be able to do that. So that is where we are. I'm stopping share and I'll take questions. Thank you. Thank you, Sadik, for this opportunity. It's a long monologue and I'm just talking into the screen. But I do hope it was of use to you. Please go ahead and I will wait for questions. And yes, my personal investment challenge is up for anybody who is willing to answer that question. Yeah.
Brilliant. Definitely amazing insights, and we have people already putting in amazing people and operational insights and real needs of NRIs. Wonderful session, man. Things have coming. So, friends, if you have any questions for ma'am, please put in the Q&A box. Puneet already has a couple of questions planned in. So we'll be extending the time a little bit. We'll take for the next 15 minutes. Puneet, the questions if you're all right, and then we'll wrap up. Love the way each explanation was personalized with your story. Thank you so much. I think it's been an absolute pleasure. Friend, also, I'm launching the poll. Ma'am, if you don't mind, we have the habit of taking a feedback for each of the session. I'm launching the poll. If I can request people to just quickly take in the poll how the session was. And over to you, Puneet, parallelly for the questions coming our way with much more insights in the next 15-20 minutes.
Right. Thank you so much. I think so. I'm sure, Uma, that people would be really happy to kind of hear your insights and your candid views, I would say, because most of the time the candid views are not always evident, and we are not appropriately geared while handling with NRs here. I have a very quick summary of what you presented so that we could actually kind of move on the questions from here. It will in quick 1 minute. I mean, you mentioned about the US residents are more direct investors and heavy on real estate, and ease of investing and into real estate combined with the lending is so. I mean, all lubricated well and hassle free that it also becomes an asset of the choice. And yes, when investing into India, I mean, the positives of US are not always available in India, like things like ease of operations, the rules of the land, not always enforced. And they earn very well, they save very well, and they donate well as well, quite well. And one of the ways you mentioned to kind of assist them were predominantly looking into their India asset portfolios, their global and if we have a good global portfolio products available in India, which predominantly caters to their India assets. I think that's a place where you said that's an easy go-to rather than kind of scouting their dollar to come in directly in India to be invested. And one of the biggest challenges are rupee depreciation, dealing with individuals, trust deficits. I mean, you name it, those things are really pinching. So those are other challenges ahead of us. With that, I mean, I go into a few questions which we have for you. And it would be great to have your
Also looking at the chat thread to look at, I have the chat thread open also to see if there are questions that I want to answer. Go ahead, Puneet. You want me to answer questions that have come in the chat thread?
Whatever way you are comfortable with. I think so. The threads are also visible at your end, I'm assuming, right? I mean, whatever
Yes, they are. What I'm saying is there is a Q&A thread which I will go to. But before that, I just wanted to quickly see the chat thread to see a few questions. Deepesh Mehta has asked whether NRIs can invest through their parent's name, who's a resident Indian, by transferring money from foreign bank to the resident Indian bank. There is absolutely no limitation on transferring money from abroad to India. There are absolutely no limitations. So you can also hold a non-resident ordinary account where you are a joint holder, so that you become automatically the beneficiary if something were to happen to the parents. You can hold the parents can be joint holders in that account and they can operate the account, and that account can be funded by the NR and used for investing. So there's really no restriction of any kind in investing, and that money need not be invested as NR investment in India. It can be invested as a normal resident money, because the money in the NRO account can also be transferred to the resident account of the resident India. The money can be transferred. It's a rupee money, so it can be transferred. If you're investing through that account, yes, it will become an NR investment because the account itself is an NRO account. Okay. Now, is DMAT an option to do? Yes, DMAT is a more convenient and a good option. And I wish that this FATCA restriction was not present, then it's easier to invest. How about NRI staying in the US getting inherited wealth? Yes, that's a huge market. I can tell you, I can give you references of 15 to 20 of my friends who have inherited all kind of stuff from their parents and don't know what to do. They don't know where to begin. They're just stuck. Okay, so there is an opportunity there. Yes, they can have that, and this money can be repatriated subject to the RBI's annual limits. So this money can be transferred over a period of time, and RBI's annual limits have only been increasing over a period of time, so it's not a problem. And if rupee becomes convertible, then that's great news. Yeah. Then thank you very much for all the compliments. I'm just quickly going through. I mean, I know that there are so many friends and so many familiar names. If I mention one name, I will then be partial to the other name that I have not mentioned, so I'm not doing it. Puneet, over to you. I'm just, I think it's a lot of praise. Thank you so much. It is, I can't tell you what a beautiful feeling it is to be so loved. After so many years of leaving, the whole training scenario, I am so touched. Thank you, Sadik, for making this happen. And I do some of these sessions through CL as well. And I'm very happy to see a lot of people here. Puneet, over to you for questions.
No issues. I think we've answered many of the questions which were there. You had answered through your presentation, but I've got a few remaining as well. It would be great to kind of know, where non-residents have their estates spread across in different countries, how we as advisors could be of help to help them in their estate transmission processes. Because they might have assets in US, they might have assets in India, inherited or purchased by them. But to transfer them...
there are too many tax hassles, Puneet. I wanted to point out, you should not assume that PIS or ETF or all of these options available are easy, because all of these are subject to taxation here because we are subject to global assets. So you're here, you have to disclose those incomes and pay taxes here. And if you did, and there are long-term capital gains are taxable here. So, you do have, you do get into a lot of tax reporting issues, particularly if you want to be lawful and legal about it. You will end up paying. People living here are very used to paying the amount of taxes they pay, but it still pinches. So that's where it is. Yeah. 401k without any taxes is so attractive, So
how could we as advisors assist them in the wealth transmission, like in the estate transmission to their, let's say, kids? Because they might have assets in US, which perhaps I don't know whether advisors in India could assist, and vice versa. So
it's a good question, Puneet, but that is a problem area actually, because it's not only amongst the individual advisors, but even if you looked at wealth management, private wealth at banks, or even private practices, this kind of global understanding of tax and other wealth issues, that knowledge is very poor. It probably is an area of expertise for someone to focus on, but the complexities are too much. So typically what an NRI will do, I mean, which is what we are doing also, we separately file our taxes in the US and separately file our taxes in India, and we have local experts here doing the work, transcribing what's happening here, and our Indian chartered accountants are taking care of what is going on there. So I think even when it comes to our own will, etc., there will be an Indian will and a US will.
Right.
There will be, yeah. The only thing is that we still have property in India, but we most of our assets are financial assets, which are relatively easier to transfer, and there are really no restrictions on wealth transfer if the beneficiary is a American citizen or NRI. It is just that there are a set of rules apply, and the amount of money that can be repatriated will be capped by the normal RBI regulation. Beyond that, there is really no restriction. You know, your children will suffer if you have some property or a piece of land which has been encroached in some suburb, but your child will not have a problem if you are leaving behind a mutual fund portfolio. I can say that.
Right, great. There are quite a few questions which could be towards
yes. There are a lot of
inheritance-related matters.
I'm sorry.
How
let
do
me
you
just take a look? Yeah.
So the theme which I can see is more of, one of the theme is towards inheritance. So when, let's say, NRIs are inheriting properties from their parents or relatives, in such situations, how do you see that affecting them in the respective country? In this example, let's say US.
Yeah, you will be subject to taxation here. There's no escaping it. The DTA will apply. So to the extent that taxes paid in India can be written off against taxes that are due in India.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be, inheritance beyond a certain limit, beyond 6 million, for instance, is taxable, subject to estate taxes in the US, and those taxes will apply. It really depends on how big your wealth is. But yes, it will be subject to taxes.
And there are themes associated with gifts as well. Like one part is where NRIs are gifting money to their parents or relatives for the management. There could be other way around as well, where they are getting gifts in India. How do you see the gifts-related parts being subject to tax?
See, as long as the gifts are received in India and maintained in India, Indian tax laws are very liberal with gifts amongst children, so there is no problem. But as far as gifts in the US are concerned, there are limits. There are limits to how much. I think about $13,000 is what it is at this time. How much you can annually gift without attracting taxes. But there are tax planners will give you various ways to kind of manage this, but legally without evasion. But the thing is that if you do transfer money to your children, let's say your children are US citizens or paying taxes in the US, and you're transferring the money from India to the US, from the India end, it will be subject to the repatriation limits. From the US end, it will be subject to taxation. There's no escape.
Uma, one common thread which I'm seeing across most of the questions are getting towards the taxation rather than the framework associated with NRIs. So, which a lot has been covered in our conversation, but there would be other specific ones as well.
Yeah, I did talk about the gift rules, right? So, the gift rules here, it's not like India. It's not as if gifts are unlimited. Gifts can be made to children and can escape taxes. No, there's such a rule doesn't exist here. Gifts are taxable beyond a limit.
Other question is, which is also one of the themes which I also got from the task force members, and I often see it in the WhatsApp groups of Network FB. The best investment instrument for a resident individual is mutual fund. How do you see that, considering you also started your presentation that they are big time direct investors, and the only way they get into mutual fund is the 401k, which is similar to
planning.
Yeah. So how do you see mutual funds being used as a mechanism by the advisor community in India to assist NRIs for their wealth planning.
Just get this whole process. Mutual funds have fantastic. My investment in India in mutual funds was the simplest, and my investment in mutual funds as a NRI is the most complex because of FATCA. If you can represent and get this addressed, if mutual funds begin to invest, begin to accept, because all that we have to provide is the tax identification number. If the tax identification number is available, then all these investments will get automatically tracked by the IRS. Okay, so there may be people who want to hide their income, but there are millions like me who are absolutely comfortable to report and pay what is due. I've always looked at post-tax income as my income. Okay, so that's right. So we pay the taxes, so we live in the country that we live in. So that's where it is. But if that problem is taken care of, if mutual funds begin to invest, accept US money, I'm sure there is a lot of flow.
I think so. Just to clarify because this is one very specialized area, Uma, which I have seen even CPAs in US struggle with. This is the PFIC norms, whereby mutual funds are PFIC is one of the chats has just come from Sachiv as well, that they are very cumbersome and expensive. There's no way around which the CPAs have found out yet. Draconian, I covered it briefly in our slides today.
Yes. So making it easy is the solution, Puneet. I don't know whether we have power.
We don't have a power.
See, it's not the taxation that matters, really. Okay, it is not as if, yes, it is annoying when your redemptions are subject to taxes, but the procedure for applying, for filing and claiming a refund is very easy in India and in the US. India refunds are absolutely beautiful. You know, you file and accept your validate your returns, and within a week you will have the refund in your bank. So it's extremely efficient filing systems we have in India, and the systems here are useful too. So for someone who is abiding, tax itself won't be a problem. Tax is not a big deal. I mean, most people living here accept that, you just have to pay. It's the process.
Right. I completely acknowledge it. I kind of assist many NRI clients in their tax filing in their respective countries. But let me kind of put my hands up as well. The US is not too great as well when it comes to the PFIC reporting.
Correct. There is so
they
much
have to kind of file so many extra investment forms just because the investment was done in India. Other bit is what do you think? I mean, what great other investment options which advisors in India could assist with? Mutual fund is one part, but always the thing is coming in our minds is what type of asset classes they are predominantly.
That's what I'm saying. At present, there is that space is a problem. That's what I'm saying. Which is why I turned the focus to India assets, because that space is riddled with too many challenges at this time. Lack of adequate products, lack of good processes, lack of trust, and all of these. Somebody is asking whether people here are looking for insurance. No US based NRI requires any insurance product from India. Very well covered here, very extensively covered. They don't need it. So please don't sell them any insurance products. They are not your market. Yeah, they are not your market. And but the other products, there is really, as I said, there are. Stocks is the only, even for stocks, there is this huge compliance and other issues. And yeah, it's easier. As I was telling you, the comparison for me. Now, as I told you, I love the Indian stocks. I love the stories, and I still enjoy reading those stories. But I can tell you, like, a few hundred in our investment club, a few hundred US stories, which are equally good. And I can invest in these with a click of a button. So, and I can receive my tax statements. 1099 will come at the end of the year, and I just attach it and file, and I'm done. So, I don't even have to look at the statements and calculate anything. I don't have to look at my bank account and find out what dividend I got, or what is the TDS. I don't have to worry about any of these things. So, it's easy for me to invest in US stocks. It's difficult for me to invest in Indian stocks. So, and the difference in returns is not so much. not so high to lure me into thinking that Indian stocks are better than the US stocks. So that's their problem. So lack of investment products is a problem, Puneet, and I don't think we can address that. We don't have the power to address that, right?
I acknowledge that, and this is, the known restrictions under which we operate. I think that we have covered materially all the themes, all the questions, the preparations which we did to kind of for this particular sessions as well. Any last thoughts, Uma, which you would have from your end?
Yeah, there was a question on financial literacy levels in common public in US versus India. It's the same. It's the same. ऐसा नहीं है कि because they are in US they know better. नहीं, हम लोगों को ज़्यादा जानकारी है. People focus on their profession. People focus on their work much more than they focus on financial matters. They mostly outsource it. So, except for the DIY investing which they do, everybody is interested in stocks. Utna hai. So, if Indians are looking at it, they will treat it like one of these investment clubs. Except that the intensity can be different. They're extremely serious and very well run. I have a women's group, where women investors and great processes and fantastic investing opportunities and, very beautiful, very well done. So there are more investment clubs here, but individual level pe to knowledge utna hi hai.
Right, got you.
Current kids, part of US income. Kids part of US income in India. No. Some parents are coming with their kids to invest their kids' income in India. Kids part of US income in India. How do you guide them? I will advise them against it. आप तो आने की सोच रहे होंगे, आपके बच्चे बिल्कुल नहीं आते. They are Americans. आपको ये मानना ही पड़ेगा, आपको जितना भी कड़वा लगे. सच ये है. They have studied here, they have grown up here, they are not going to come and live in India. उनकी India connection है. But that's their identity. They wear it with great pride, as I told you. Oh, they sing so beautifully. US NRI children are among the best singers I have heard because they are so well trained. बहुत अच्छा गाते हैं और they do all of that, but वापस नहीं आने वाले हैं. तो उनके पैसा इंडिया में डाल के आप प्लीज गलती मत करना. All right, Puneet.
I think I'll hand over the call to Priya. Priya.
Thank you so much, Puneet. I'm sure if we keep taking on the questions, it's going to keep adding, and we can be sitting here for the next hour also and the questions won't end. But thank you, Puneet, for taking up much required questions brilliantly, and ma'am for answering each one of them. And it was so good to see. Even at the start, you were like, okay, let me answer the questions in the chat first. We took those up back to back, and then we had Puneet taking up the questions. And the ones which was not answered, I also saw Puneet replying to them privately, just answering those queries. So thank you so much, Puneet, for taking up. And ma'am, an absolute pleasure to have you. Here's your last.
Yeah, I was just, there are people who are asking that should I take the Indian assets to the US? Many NRIs don't. You can. You can liquidate everything in India and bring it all, convert it all systematically. You can transfer it to the US. Why I point that out as a market is that Indians, NRIs don't do it. नहीं करते हैं. उनको वो connection चाहिए. So it is much better to manage those Indian assets in India and manage them well. They are attached to it. But anyway, thank you very much. I think we've run out of time, and it has been wonderful. I will probably go through the chat I see a lot of familiar names. I'll go through the chat leisurely to see, to meet with people who have come in. But thank you very much indeed. I'm so touched with all the love and all the kind words. And yes, I miss India. I don't know. People ask me, are you going to live here or are you going to come back? Because my stay got extended, I sold CL to Himanshu. I still continue to be on the board, but I'm more a gardener and what do I say, palliative care and food nutrition person now. Uma 2.0 is doing too little of finance, but some connections are live. Thank you.
It's so great. It's not only for you that you've been able to connect, but I personally got a couple of calls saying that we would love to join in today, and people have not been attending for a long time. People have been waiting to hear you, and thanks for actually accepting our invite and taking it up, even with the oddly ask. So you can see the chat going on. Mamta, Pankaj, Rajshekar, Satish, Karuna Nadi. We have Sadiq mentioning thank you again for accepting our invite. Viresh, Sudarshan. Please come back. Many gardening opportunities in India too. So fabulous and kind comments all on the chat. So thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated, and it's been a pleasure in the last 1 hour to get your insights and just we had actually task force putting in just your voice soothing the entire, the way you present. It's a different experience altogether. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you. I kept it simple. I didn't make it too technical. I hope it was helpful. Thank you very much indeed. Priya, is there a way I can read this chat after the session is over, or will it close?
I can actually just maybe download the chat and give it to you. So it will come.
Yeah, that'll be helpful, Priya, because then I can see who was there, because there are too many entries there, and I'm sure I know a lot of those names. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Network FP and Sadiq, Priya and team. You've been wonderful. Thank you, Puneet, and everybody else who helped. Thank you so much.
So much.
It was a great job. Thank you.
So thank you, and friends, with that, let's wrap up. I want to do a quick announcement before we actually close the session.